Forza Horizon 4 is my first foray into the Horizon series. It's also set around the United Kingdom, where I live, and I love the game, so for all you Redditors, you can tick off both boxes for reasons why people love the fourth game again. I know, I'm unoriginal. Anyway, like and subscribe, let's go. I've struggled with the categorization for this particular video for a while. While I do love the game for the most part, it's also got a few glaring issues, some quibbles, and it's also not available for purchase anymore. So while it just about slips into the Quids in series, it's worth noting the discontinued nature of things and how that's impacted the various online systems. So, it's an open world driving game. I've not played many of these. Need for Speed Heat comes to mind, GTA 5 if you count that. Maybe you count Burnout Paradise or Driver San Francisco, some of which I've talked about on the channel before. But when it comes to the open world driving genre, I think Forza Horizon is most synonymous with it. There's a few things that I think make or break the whole idea here. The map design, the race designs, the stuff to do between races, and I guess things like the story, the cars themselves, customization, and multiplayer, and a bunch of other stuff that I'm not immediately remembering. Let's start with the map. It is a condensed version of most of the UK. Great Britain indeed. At the far north we've got a squished Edinburgh, a version of the Lake District with a huge lake, some Yorkshire moors, Bamborough Castle, we've got a golf course, a mountain, a vast forest, a quarry, a train yard, Stonehenge, Ambleside, the Glenfinnan Viaduct, complete with the Flying Scotsman train going through on the regular. There's a lot of landmarks actually, but that's just a taste of them. While it's not superbly accurate or anything, it does manage to capture the feel of being in those locations. I've been to most of these places myself, and I can recognise details that manage to do a lot of heavy lifting. While you can't go inside Edinburgh Castle, the fact that it's there is good enough. Ambleside is also tiny, but in real life has much more going on than you'd be led to believe here. Yes, it is more than just a small huddle of houses and a pub. The fact is though, with the way the roads twist around all the time and how undulating and varied the environments are, it manages to evoke familiarity with how it really is to drive around this country, at least on A and B roads. One downside is that the roads themselves are unrealistically wide, something like each lane feeling 3 or 4 times wider than it actually is in real life. I'm not really bothered about that for the sake of allowing supercars to go fast in the game, but it is definitely noticeable. There is also a huge motorway that allows for some of that, but come on, it's just a motorway. The long, boring, entirely forgettable stretches of tarmac and concrete. Some players do love them though. The map itself is fantastic, and a solid reason to keep going back to this previous entry in the Horizon series. And most interesting of all, each week the season changes things noticeably. This means the lakes will freeze in winter, grip levels change dramatically between icy, wet and dry roads, or bales of hay might appear in once empty fields to cause a crash if you want to take a shortcut. Honestly, it does sometimes feel like spring, summer and autumn feel very similar to each other, but they sure do look a ton different, and that helps keep things feeling fresh all the time. I love the season changes overall. Now we have a world, it's got to be populated with races. There's various kinds ranging from basic road races over laps to point-to-point stuff. We have night street races with traffic, dirt races going off-road, cross-country races that tend to send you flying over extreme jumps off mountainsides, and drag races. Many of these just feel good to drive. I'm especially a fan of the dirt events, being a big dirt rally enjoyer. However, a lot of these so-called dirt races do feature significant amounts of asphalt driving to drive along, which seems like a bit of a misstep to me. I'm less of a fan of the cross-country stuff, mostly because I don't find the sorts of cars that are best used to be all that fun to drive. To me, a Jeep is a Jeep. An SUV is a big, bulky, boring box. Meh. But it's cool that these events exist to give reason for the huge variety of cars to occupy your garage, and there's nothing stopping you taking anything you like around any stage in the game if you fancy it. You can literally customize any of the races that you like, taking any kind of car, with any kind of performance level, with any season or weather or time of day. Just go nuts. Now that I'm thinking about it, talking about the races themselves is sort of just adding on to the discussion about the map design. Adding a bunch of checkpoints in places around said map to create said races is just icing on the cake in the grand scheme. If you've got a lot of cool set pieces and a lot of well-crafted twisty roads, then you'll end up with a solid number of fun races to play with. Though I do find myself mostly just repeating the endgame big races like the Gauntlet or the Colossus. Yet another big tick for exploring the map are all the collectibles that you can find. There's a total of 200 boards placed around the map, both near to roads and totally way off in the middle of nowhere. These mostly just add things to go and do while cruising the open world. Some of these are challenging to hit as well, like the ones asking you to perform some really specific jumps, which can be fun to work out exactly how to land. I could see some people finding all these tedious to collect, along with the drive every single road achievement, but I quite liked casually driving around and ticking things off as I went, bearing in mind that I also played the game for over 200 hours. Between collecting things and doing races, we also encounter PR stunts. These are danger signs that ask you to do gigantic jump distances without crashing, drift zones that see you going sideways with the most style. These were super hard in my opinion, and I have no idea why, I can't really explain it. They were much easier in Horizon 5, and then we've got speed traps and zones that ask you to hit a certain speed over a point, or a certain average speed over a section of road. Some of these were a little bit challenging, but with good tunes and well-built cars, they were a lot of fun to 100% as well. The DLCs also added Trailblazer events, which are cross-country sprints against the clock, requiring a bit of careful pathfinding as well as tactical massive sends. Do watch out for trees. If you're done crashing, then you could also try the 5 showcase events. These are pure spectacle, fantasy, silliness races that pit you against various insane scenarios. Driving cross-country against a gigantic hovercraft, jumping over and dangerously in front of it, racing the Flying Scotsman into Edinburgh city centre and beating it literally at the last second, rallying around the quarry and the forests while a team of dirt bikers do a load of stunts around you, racing a humongous jet as it does aerobatics and feeling the huge increase in downforce as it flies closely over you. Seeing the slow-mo shots as all these spectacular stunts happens feels super heroic as the timing for everything miraculously lines up. Cynically, you could say that it's scripted that way, and yes, of course, but that doesn't make it any less cool to play, in my opinion. There's also a Halo showcase that has you drive a warthog around with a pelican and a bunch of voice lines that reference the games. Pretty fun stuff, of course including Cortana's "This cave is not a natural formation" on entering the motorway tunnel. Shame there's no Halo music to go with it, but Mjolnir Mix fits pretty damn well if you just put it on in the background. It's cheesy, yes, but I don't care. And finally, we've got story missions that give you specific scenarios to beat. These are generally a mixed bag of quality, both in terms of their setup, the voice lines, the routes, and the objectives. Some are fun to play, specifically the ones that ask you to do one race and just do it well, but others are, well, not so much. Anything that asks you to get a massive skill score was usually a bit of a bad time for me. British Racing Green was my favourite story, giving me a neat historical overview of a bunch of British cars. I had no idea about the Lotus Sunbeam until playing this, and of course they had to talk all about Aston Martin and Bond. Thumbs up. The Top Gear stuff was mostly fun too. Chris Harris was a great host, he took this job quite seriously and it shows. You even get wildly different commentary from him depending on how you actually play these missions, which was a fun touch. I wasn't a fan of the more secret ways to beat some of them though. I don't really want to go off-roading in supercars. And then you've got stuff like the La Racer series. A fun concept, taking various old racing games and reimagining them here, but wow, is that character just super obnoxious. All the worst traits about being a content creator just amped up to 11 here. The worst character. Barn finds were something that I did look forward to though, always. These turn up periodically and give you a chance to get a bunch of rare cars. We're talking the Audi Quattro, with an Ashes to Ashes reference along with it, a Mark 1 GT40, an E-Type Jag, the XJ220 and a bunch of other cool stuff. Nothing much to add here, I just appreciated the distraction and venturing out to look for them. And finally we've got driving and the cars themselves. Now then, the physics aren't amazing or anything. I'd argue that Forza Horizon 4 has passable driving physics, usually good, but the game doesn't quite feel super detailed with its arcade-leaning Simcade handling model. A ton of cars feel very samey, and while I don't really have a problem with that myself, I can see some car enthusiasts being turned off by it. You expect certain cars to have certain personalities, and certainly some with very recognisable sound. Alas, a lot of this feels homogenised, like you have a certain number of common engine types, and all of them sound the same no matter what chassis you bolt them to. It's mostly satisfying to drive whatever you like around the map and race with them, but after a while you'll notice a lack of depth to a lot of these cars. There's over 750 things to drive, and while you're going to encounter a rather bloated list of BMWs and Porsches, you'll also come across a wide variety of car classes like classics, silly stuff like the PLP 50, muscle cars, rally, trucks, sports cars, three-wheelers, off-roaders, supers, hypers, and even daily drivers. There's definitely something for everyone in here, and it's enjoyable to collect them too if you're into that. Tuning can certainly help with making things feel different to drive, but it isn't always a fix. You'll mostly end up with a few kinds of feels: drift cars, drag cars, pure speed, all-rounders, off-roaders, and handling-based tunes. There's a lot of shared stuff online to try out, and many expert players have optimised a ton of these cars for purpose, but if you're looking for purist stuff or specific fast but still easy to drive tunes, then you might be a bit hard pressed. The tuning system itself is pretty detailed, and you can mess around with plenty, and yes, I've tuned a number of cars myself too, and do notice the difference when playing around with all kinds of these settings, so it does actually do its job and feel worthwhile to play around with. I know when I have too much camber, or a weird toe setting on my cars, when my suspension is bottoming out, or when it's not travelling enough, but I'm awful at messing around with gear ratios, so let's not talk about that part. Some stuff is very unrealistic though. While I don't understand it well enough to explain, I do know that having insane tyre pressures is very common on good tunes, and completely silly in real life. Unfortunately too is the fact that downloading a better tune means also downloading whatever visual upgrades may have been added. Visual upgrades are coupled together with performance ones, and I've often found a lot of cool tunes that have the ugliest wheel rims in the world, which is quite frustrating. You also can't actually view any of the tune settings that you download to learn from them, which is a bit of a shame. So fine, keep your secrets. Liveries can also be custom made, and there's a ton of versatility with the system. I'm awful at this, so I just download car culture stuff, which is nice that so many talented people bother to recreate real life stuff on here. It's cool to run Fast and Furious replicas, or a bunch of old rally liveries, or Le Mans remakes, or touring cars. Whatever really, there's no notes here. It's fiddly, it's complex, but it has seemingly limitless potential when mastered. And the game overall looks amazing. I think the graphics really hold up. You'll unfortunately not be able to appreciate the detail in this video because YouTube kills the bitrate, so you'll have to just take my word for it. The roads are incredibly detailed. Gravel, dirt and mud look suitably deformed in places. Foliage is lush and vibrant. Dirt on the windscreen builds up believably. Water splashes obscure vision temporarily as droplets linger on windows, and tons of other details that all add up to make for an amazingly immersive time. Car interiors are well detailed also. As a casual car fan, everything feels really good to me as each car looks unique and has plenty of attention paid to matching their real life counterparts. I love the way that dials light up at night, especially in the Cozzy and the XJ220. More hardcore fans will find things not quite right in places. If you look online or happen to own any of these cars, you might be in that position. But overall, I love driving from the seat a lot of the time. You'll definitely notice that the steering wheel rotation is severely not accurate, for example. The DLCs are sort of mixed. Fortune Island is overall pretty incredible map design with what feels like the best of everything they learned from the base game. The mountain features a mega drift run where you'll often find players drifting it to this day. All the off-road races were fun for me, and the weather is kind of crazy with wild storms and auroras to enjoy at night. It also comes with its own 2 mega races that traverse the entire island, both on and off-road, the Kraken and the Leviathan. I replayed these a ton in all kinds of different cars to test them out. Great stuff. The LEGO DLC is kinda hit or miss. If you like LEGO in the first place, it's fun. It's literally a LEGO world with all the weird little things that might bring. Minifigs populating the town, LEGO goats hopping through the fields, every prop is LEGO from umbrellas, chairs, trees, bins, barriers, everything. And they all make hilarious LEGO sounds when you smash through them, which I find very silly and it tickles my brain very nicely. The map itself is well made. I enjoyed skidding around in the flower fields and smashing hundreds and hundreds of LEGO plants all over the shop. The airport, the sand dunes, the LEGO ghosts at night, the UFOs, there is a lot of detail to see. and there's Lego cars to play with as well. The main feature of this DLC is definitely the brick challenge system, giving you a ton of specific goals to aim for as you play, and more unlock as you go, which eventually reward you. These later became the accolade system in Horizon 5, for what that's worth. Finishing these things kept me busy for roughly about a week. I'll briefly mention the Eliminator here, a PvP car-based battle royale system that seemed fairly popular. I really didn't enjoy it though. It clearly favoured veteran players who have a ton of map knowledge and know how to manipulate the game. You drive around, you find car upgrade drops in a continuously shrinking location on the map, and do head-to-head races against other players to knock them out and further upgrade your vehicle. It's got a ton of strategy to it. It's mostly off-road unless you know which roads are most efficient for each finish line, and it's also insanely luck-based. Go 1,000,000 miles an hour in a straight line and you'll win, but you're about 300% likely to smash into a tree and lose, which is not cool. It was novel for a while, but it got old fairly quickly when trying to earn the achievements. At least Horizon 4's map kept it somewhat interesting, whereas Horizon 5 really kind of dropped the ball in that. Speaking of other things that I wasn't a big fan of, here's some fast issues that I had with the game. Character customization is bare bones, but honestly it's not important to most people. It seems most people just wear the dumbest possible stuff to look silly on their loading screens, but I do wish I had control over being able to wear socks or tights with my skirt. There's a large focus on user generated content as you drive around. You'll find entry points to the Super 7 challenge cards everywhere, and they're usually rubbish. 9 out of 10 times it'll just be a challenge that has you drive in a straight line down the motorway, but sometimes it'll be a troll card that traps you in a box or puts the finish line in some secret, hard to find place that you'd only get to with a hidden ramp. I didn't like these, but the system that lets you build them is actually quite robust, and if you look up share codes for the really good stuff, you can find fun scenarios to drive. I've built a couple of rally stages in there myself, a hill climb with a Peugeot 205 T16 and a lakeside run with a Metro 6R. You can't do semi-automatic gears, you're either full manual or full auto, and I wish I could just full auto with an override when I notice the car bogging down, but that's not an option. I'm really not a fan of the in-game music, and the streamer mode to mute it does not stay on between sessions. It's a minor gripe, but it's still there. The racing line isn't particularly accurate to your car's capability. Usually it's quite conservative, having you slow down too much, but that's not always the case, so you can't always judge a corner that well if you're relying on it. And the alternative is basically learn the entire open world map, which seems a little unrealistic to me. Online modes as a whole are dead. It would take ages, I mean 30 minutes plus, to find a PvP match just before it got delisted from stores in 2024, and I'd be surprised if it isn't actually impossible by now. Infinite loading screens exist. You can literally be stuck in a load with no choice but to Alt F4 or wait potentially an hour for it to unbug, and I am dead serious about these numbers, by the way. This was unacceptable. And finally, if you do get lucky enough to get into a match, you're cursed with the free roam rush events in between races, meaning you have to do a forced cross-country trailblazer event even if you're running a road-tuned supercar, which I find pretty silly stuff. I did not enjoy free roam rushes. With all that said though, the normal gameplay loop is great. Just take any car you like, upgrade it any way you like, tune it however you see fit, and send it on some races. That is where I had my fun with Forza Horizon 4, and is why I'm ultimately recommending it here, if you can find a copy of it, of course. I'm MagicalMike, and I'm quids in with this game. Cheers.